people need to wake up and understand what are the properties of light.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like going back to that contradiction we were talking about.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and the need for light. I mean, again, we've been addressing this, but let's do it again because it's important. You know, there is an inherent need, I guess, for people in that sense to the, you know, we seek stuff that are, you know, of the light, and we, when we go within and so forth, we look for the light, and the question is, what is it that we get in contact with when we do this?
Well, the ego, see, this connects then with the whole idea that the sun in the sky is the light of the outer world.
Mm-hmm.
And then your ego, and the word ego comes from the word egg. The word egg and ego come from the same word root.
Yeah, indeed.
The ego, the light within, it's like imagine an egg, right, that has that yellow part.
Sure.
Well, your ego is the light of your own consciousness within. So even ancient people understood this. They understood that your thinking, the organ of the brain or the thought, is like a light. It's like a luminescence within your own head. So you have a psychological light, and you have a physical light. And maybe Akhenaten or even the priests before him, because remember, solar worship goes way back before Akhenaten. His was just one little twig off the tree of solar worship. He didn't invent it. He didn't invent anything to do with monotheism. That's all his henchmen writing false history books to lead you astray. You know, Ammonism, that had gone back 3,000 years, Tsarion, the Assyrian, you know, tradition, and then if you take it back to the Irish connection, they had Isis, you know, I mean, one of the gods of light, and Tyrannus. So the Celts, you know, not the Celts, but the Irish, the Druids had, you know, these gods of light long before the Egyptians even heard of it. So this is a concept, and I think during their time, they also realized that the action of thought, which gives luminescence to your thinking, there's a connection between the outer form of light and the inner form of light.
Yeah.
And so from that moment on, you know, it got fused together, that there's a sort of a quest. And there's also a waning of that light. The light rises either in the zodiac or even during the year or even during a day. Even in the shortest period of time, which is just 24 hours, the sun rises and it's so strong. And then it burns brightly in midday, you know, it's very, very powerful. And then it wanes.
Yeah.
So this also used to, I think, fascinate the ancient people, that there was almost 3 or 4 different kinds of light or power of the sun. You know, and ultimately they multiplied that to 12. That's why you have the 12 houses of the zodiac.
Ah, sure, yeah.
You know, and then the Egyptians, some Egyptian schools even multiplied that further into 36 signs of the zodiac, which is what I go into in my online mystery school. We talk about the meaning of the 36. You know, 36 is a very important number in astrology. And the astrology I teach is very much based on this 36 houses of the zodiac. But, you know, basically, everyone knows the famous 12 signs of the zodiac, the 12 faces of the sun.
Yeah.
And the 12 is based on the primal 3. The 3, you know, like all trinities, Rama, Vishnu, Shiva, you know, Bel, Tyrannus, and Isis. You know, you name it. All over Egypt, they have the triads and the trinities.
Sure. Interesting.
So 3 and 8 and 10, these are all very important numbers to these people of the solar cult.
Sure.
But one thing is also don't forget that they were brilliant observers of nature, and ultimately the Luciferian concept comes. I tie in for the Atlantis book that the fall of Tiamat, the planet that I refer to as Tiamat, but that also has been referred to as Lucifer. And Marduk and Rahab and Phaeton, you know, there's all sorts of different names depending on the tradition.
Sure.
And I didn't call it Lucifer in the book because it's too controversial. You know, it just the word Lucifer is so loaded.
It is, yeah.
You know what I mean? I didn't want to have yet another, you know, interpretation of that. But the Romans always referred to Lucifer as Venus.
Ah, yeah, sure.
So they were wrong. It wasn't Venus, but at least they took it up into the heavens. At least they associated the name Lucifer originally, which is from Lucem Fere, and it meant, they believed it meant Venus, meaning that it was one of the planets of the solar system. Now, I believe, of course, it wasn't Venus, it was actually Tiamat.
Yeah.
That has also been called Phaeton and also has been called Lucifer. And the actual imagery that is spoken of in the Bible and many other traditions about the falling serpent or the falling angel, you see?
Yeah.
There's so many mythologies all over the world that talk about the one who falls from heaven. And this original being, I believe, was connected to a physical destruction of a planet. You know, remember in the Atlantis book, I think we did a show where we talked about disaster. The very word means the destruction of a star.
Sure, yeah.
And catastrophe, meaning the destruction of a star, and also the fact that the word Saul, which is the name for our sun, literally means the alone one. Saul comes from the same term as solitary.
And solo.
And solo. And Luna is very close to, is exactly the word where we get our word alona, alone.
Sure, yeah.
So why would the ancients then be saying that their sun and their moon are called the alone ones? It almost presupposes the fact that once they were not alone. And then you check out a mythology and you find out, my God, there was a second sun up there.
Yeah.
And you want to become specific about it, well, it wasn't actually a sun, it was a very large planet that was highly radiant. Well, that planet was destroyed. Now, I'm the only scholar in the world that believes that the destruction was not, natural. You'll have a lot of people who have written about this, from Zacharias Sitchin all the way back to Commons Beaumont and Manuel Velikovsky, Alan and Dallaire, the list goes on. But unfortunately, the difference with my work is that I don't believe that was just destroyed by some comet, or some natural action. In my work, I talk about that it was humanoid in destruction. But if we leave that aside for now and just realize that this planet was known as Lucifer, and the destruction of it, and the shards or the remnants of this planet, and this utter destruction, creating the asteroid belt, and much of the destruction on other planets like the Moon, and also on Mars, all this havoc that can be seen there. Well, the people on our Earth saw this, fiery planet destroyed and fall to Earth. It appeared to fall towards the Earth. And this is where you get the idea of the fallen one. The fallen, somebody that was once a beautiful angel. Remember in the Bible it says, I think it's in Isaiah, when they describe Satan or Lucifer, they very much talk about, it's actually in the book of Ezekiel, that Lucifer is very beautiful.
Indeed.
Originally, before he fell, he's very beautiful. Well, this is a dead giveaway. That this is talking about a celestial, beautiful orb that then got destroyed and fell towards the earth. And then, anecdotally, they also say that when the flames or the ball of the planet was destroyed and it was falling towards the earth, it fell into the sign of Scorpio. From the earth, where the sign of Scorpio was, particularly the 18th and 19th degree of the sign of Scorpio, which has always been considered malefic.
Okay.
That's where they saw this, ball fall. And that's very interesting because if you pick up the tarot card number 13, and look at it in the Rider-Waite deck, you will see a sun going down below the horizon in that card. And that card is the card of Scorpio.
So that is...
So again, just one more mystery that the tarot contains is the fall of Phaeton, or the fall of Lucifer. Into the sign of Scorpio.
Interesting. There was a report a while back from, I think it was BBC, and most, at least, accepted, whatever that means, but, astrology, or astronomy, I should say, have come to the conclusion that most solar systems actually are binary, and it's in a sense, this connects with the entire theme that is expressed in Star Wars and other movies, that there are two suns on the horizon and so forth.
Well, so, I didn't know that, but that's incredible information.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
And it corroborates what the myths and I just go by the myths and legends. And I believe what they basically say in there. I've just studied them for so long that I have no problem accepting that stuff, and they would tend to agree with that. They say that there's two planetary orbs there at one time, and this was destroyed. And when it fell, I think one of the there's a tribe in the world that actually called that Sata, S-A-T-A. Can you believe it? One of the ancient legends of a very, very early group. I think it was in Egypt. Actually, they had a serpent god. That's what it was, and that's what it was called, S-A-T-A. Sata, that fell like a flaming serpent. Babylonian, they have Zu. Z-U was a god, a lightning god again. There's that lightning concept, you see, who fell as a certain kind of a fiery serpent. Yeah. You have in Greece, you have the myth of Icarus, you see.
Yeah.
Or you have Prometheus, falling down. These are all corrupted versions, later versions of this, because as time goes by, myths get complicated, and they get several other myths get all tied up,
Indeed, yeah.
But you have in the Bible Jesus saying, "Get behind me, Satan," meaning that now Jesus is the Son. Jesus is like Aton, or a solar god, and he doesn't want to be rivaled anymore by any other deity. This goes back to astrotheology and astrology.
Sure.
Of the heliacal risings, But you see, you turn to the Vedas, they mention the destruction of a physical body. Ovid, Manilius, these are the Roman authors. Plato and Nonus of the Greeks, they talked about it. So there's a lot there. And the most interesting thing that I think needs to be understood is that why, again, remember one of those contradictions like we opened the show with? Why on earth is, if Lucifer is meant to be the god of evil, how come Jesus refers to himself as the morning star in the Bible?
Sure, exactly. There you have it.
You know, and it's not just in one place, but I think it's in Peter or 2 Peter, where he literally is describing himself as the morning star.
Yeah.
And in Revelations 22, it's also, there's a connection made, and Jesus verbally says, when I am in the world, I am the light of the world.
Sure.
You know, and I am the bright and morning star. And yet, you know, they're telling you, the same Christians will then tell you, but wait a minute, that's connected to Lucifer. Well, it's because Lucifer was a title of all kings. Lucifer was not a name. It referred to the bringers of light, the bringers of knowledge. Even Mary Magdalene in the Gnostic Gospels is called bringer of light, a Lucifer, literally called a Lucifer, a bringer of the light. Lucifer is connected to the son of the morning, or the son of the dawning, as many of the texts say. Isaiah 14, right, describes, thou art fallen from heaven, O day star. I mean, there's even a Christian network called Day Star over in America.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
But how art thou fallen from heaven? So they say, how are you that you have fallen from heaven, O day star, son of the morning? This is exactly how Jesus describes himself. And that you shall be brought down, it says in Isaiah 14, and thou shalt be brought down to the nether world, to the utmost parts of the earth, or to the pit. So, in other words, they're talking about something falling into the pit. But from that moment on, you see, in occult ritual, the idea is that the sun gods, or the great Christs, or the great initiators, you see, are representatives of that knowledge, that light that has fallen from heaven. So it's nothing negative, you see. This is what people have to understand. But the most interesting thing is not only that you have references of Jesus identifying himself as a Lucifer, but the word Lucifer has the syllable luce, L-U-C-E, in Old French. That meant fish. See, L-U-C-E, Lucy, in Latin, obviously, is where we get the word light.
Yeah, sure.
Like the girl's name, Lucy.
Sure.
But in Old French, lusa meant fish. Now, wait a minute. Fish? That's the symbol that, you know, that the Christians use for Christ all over the place.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. So another connection comes to light.
Apparently a contradiction until you realize what's going on here, that there's no difference between Lucifer and Jehovah and Jesus. You see, they're all connected because they're titles. And then somebody will jump in and say, well, wait a minute, that's brilliant, because Lucy, the word Lucy or locus, even the word in mathematics, loci or locus, and that brings up there's another dimension to the fish. Lusa, or the fish, is the vesica Pisces of sacred geometry. You know when you bring two circles together and you have that strange shape?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Right. So now we're into, wait a minute, that yes, the carpenter, the masons, you got the Jesus being the teacher, and he's symbolized by the fish, not because it's a physical fish or necessarily even the sign of Pisces or whatever. It's more to do with the fact that he's an initiator into sacred geometry, the great mysteries of architecture. And this whole symbolism of the fish is well known to geometrists because it represents this famous vesica Pisces. I mean, even in Christian art, you see, you know, Jesus in that shape.
Sure, sure.
In this, what they call the mandorla, or the shape of the fish, the vaginal symbol.
Yeah.
It connects to the Mother Mary and all the way back to Isis and everything else. And this is again, you know, secret knowledge. So Jesus being the keeper of secret knowledge.
Yeah.
Is the fish, or Lucifer. So we're talking sun worship here. We're not necessarily talking Atonism. Atonism is a very specific kind of sun worship. It's not sun worship itself. So people have to realize that sun worship, solar cult, has been going on for thousands of years. Atonism was a particularly skewed version, and the kind of Luciferianism that might be critiqued today by Christians and others is Atonism, and it's a skewed form of solar worship. It's really, to me, it's the dark side of the sun. It's something of these other properties of light that people need